The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, was established in 1949 to defend Western Europe from the Soviet Union's threat. It is considered the longest-lasting and most successful defense alliance in history, with its strength largely based on its military ability to deter aggression. NATO's Article 5 guarantees serve as the foundation for its deterrence through collective defense. When founded, NATO consisted of 12 countries, 10 of which were European, and was founded while Europe was still recovering from World War II. The Soviet Union and the West had occupied German zones of occupation, which included dividing the former German capital, Berlin, between the East and West. And this division became a source of tension and the new dividing line in a Cold War rivalry, and the West had a perceived and unified foe in the Soviet Union to rally common defense. Today, the Cold War is over, but NATO has expanded to encompass 32 nations, and the perceived threat and unified response among these 32 nations are highly doubtful. Most NATO governments agree that Russia poses the greatest geographical threat to Europe, but different nations have different priorities and policies on managing such threats. NATO's military power depends on member countries agreeing on Article 5 implementation in a crisis. As a requirement of membership, NATO countries must follow democratic principles, including free elections. This means that leaders who agree to the terms of NATO membership may be replaced by less inclined or anti-NATO leaders, potentially making them less disposed to support NATO leadership or using their inherent veto to stop policy changes they disagree due to their political national interest. NATO rules require unanimous consent for policy and strategy decisions, including military action. The organization adopts a Clausewitzian model, where military action is a representation of political exercise through alternative methods. However, once military operations begin, they are not subject to unanimous consent from the political leadership. Though this is theoretical due to NATO having not fought a war as an organization, making it uncertain how the political leadership may interact with NATO at war. The requirement of unanimous consent for political decisions prior to military action, such as the invocation of Article 5 and the use of collective defense, is another issue. Article 5 requires debate and unanimous consent to invoke it, but the founding members of NATO anticipated this potential issue and exhibited flexibility in defining a military response acceptable under Article 5. However, even with diluted options for responses to support Article 5, there is no guarantee of unanimous consent with a 32-nation membership. NATO's theoretical strength is only theoretical unless it can get 32 nations to support a NATO action with military force. If Russia is considered a military threat, Russia can adopt a political stance to convince at least one country to use its veto to stop a NATO collective response. This could nullify any NATO plan that depends on combined strength, resources, or the right of passage across borders. To address issues that could potentially make NATO impotent, it needs to amend its rules, which in itself will require unanimous consent. If collective defense is considered the best political option, creating a smaller, more politically aligned defense organization could supplement NATO but remain outside of NATO's control.